Thank you, Mr. Chair. Committee members, it's been one of those kind of long roads to get here at this point. I think that Senator Cheatham will remember it was just over 2 years ago I walked into this committee room in education with a bill to do what we're trying to do here, but it really wasn't to the point it needed to be yet. And I pulled the bill down and moved it to interim study, which, as we know, a lot of times bills go to interim study. We never see them ever again. Instead, we made this bill an active interim study. We got a lot of input from hopefully all stakeholders involved, from all different parts of the education community, the communities themselves across rural Arkansas. And what I bring to you today is, I believe, as good of a bill as we can do, that we can have to do what we're trying to do, stay in accordance with Article 14, Section 2 of our Constitution, not cause any undue mandates on anyone, but still make properties available to our rural communities after they've been lost to consolidation, to keep those rural communities as vibrant as we can. I'm glad to start answering all the questions we may have.
Okay, starting the explanation of the bill. Questions, comments? President Linck, what were the primary concerns from 2 years ago when we dropped this that have been addressed in the bill presented today?
Very good question. Article 14, Section 2 says, in my version, as short as compact as we can make it, basically the state can't go out and build something and then sell it to someone for less than the value of that property. A very good part of our Constitution. It keeps us from perhaps having unfair transactions that would better someone using our dollars to do so, tax dollars. The first bill, and what we've currently said, is that we've had to get 90% of appraised value. That's what my bill said, and it's very difficult to do. So we tried to drop it down to perhaps 40% of appraised value. We're trying to figure out how to get a value in there. When we dropped it to 40%, that was just in too much of a conflict. But 90% is impossible. First off, trying to find an appraised value of an empty school building in the middle of rural Arkansas is very difficult. Finding someone that will give 90% of that value after it's found is impossible. So what we've done is we've gone to fair market value. Fair market value is determined as what will someone give for it. Well, we felt that that was still perhaps too open, because all you'd have to say is, what will you give me for this? $10. Well, there's fair market value. So what we've done is we've added a page and a half, which hopefully is engrossed. I didn't look to see this, and if there was a House amendment, yes it is, that defines what fair market value is and how a school is to go about determining fair market value. And it's a fairly lengthy process that I think will hold the mustard when it comes down to it. That was the main problem we had and the hardest thing to work around.
Okay, in process for this, the building has been sitting 2 years post consolidation. And does the new district board or the existing district board have to announce that that's available, or is it just a community comes to that board and asks for consideration?
They either need to make it, to use it, or make it available. And using it is fairly easy. We didn't take local control away from local school boards. A local school board is who determines what educational value or what educational purpose is. So it has to be used for educational purpose. If a local school board determines that opening an old gymnasium 2 days a week for the community to play basketball in, or the community to have some sort of educational purpose as they define it, then that's fine. That's using it. But after 2 years, if it's not being used, it's not been made available for either a lease or community use, then they've got to do something. We're not even saying you have to sell it. We're saying you got to make it available. It's got to be available to the public. If you're not, in 2 years, if you've done nothing with it, we're not going to allow our state's assets to sit there and rot.
Thank you. Other questions? Senator
President Linck, are there some particular demands out there that you could give us examples of what's creating the demand for these buildings to be made available, some of the uses?
Let me step around your question, and I'll get you a direct answer to your question. To give you an idea, I don't have a school in my district that this makes a difference to. This is a statewide issue. In other words, I'm not coming to you because of Lead Hill or because of Flippin or anything.
Oh, yeah, I believe that.
And if you look at the 4 sponsors on there, I want to get to this real quick. Linck, Catlett, Flowers, and Urban. There's probably not more diversity across 4 legislators that you're going to find in the state of Arkansas. So I think we've covered about everything that we can cover. Now, to get you a direct answer, if I could bring Renee up here from Rural Community Alliance, okay, Mr. Chair, and she can give a lot better direct answer to the question.
Ms. Carter signed up to speak for the bill already, so Ms. Carter, take a seat. Introduce yourself to the record. You recognize Ms. Carter.
Renee Carr, Executive Director of Rural Community Alliance. Your question is for Elliot. The one that comes to mind, but it's certainly not the only one, is the empty campus at Fish Valley, the former Fish Valley School, which is now the Two Rivers School District. And the building was built a few years before they closed, before Act 60 took place, and they closed that school. And that particular structure, the gymnasium, and it has classrooms, was partially funded by that community. One donor gave $250,000 to help build that structure, and they raised another several thousand to build it. And if you go by there now, the building is chained, locked. There are no utilities. It's questionable whether there's insurance on it, other than just salvage stuff. So, or cleanup if it was to be demolished. So it's not the only example. It has even come up in my own district with one-room schoolhouses that have been on the school district's property list for 80 years. So there's uncertainty by the school boards and by the superintendents as to what they can do with these.
Well, I was asking particularly though, if you know, what are some of the uses that people have proposed for some of these buildings? That's what I was asking about, because I know it's a problem.
Oh, okay, so you're talking more about uses.
Yeah.
I've heard of museums. I've heard of after-school programs. I've heard of a meeting place for Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts.
Girl Scouts are popular.
Yes, they are. 4-H. So there's rural communities are resourceful, and if they have the assets to do these things.
Okay, all right, thank you.
There has been, if I could expand on that a little bit, there has been some possible grants available through our Arkansas Heritage and Historical that would be available for some of these older schools if they were made available. So that would be an avenue as well.
All right, Senator Raker.
Thank you very much. I was looking specifically at the comment section. Mr. Linck, and I don't know if you have this, but it's on the fiscal impact statement.
Okay.
And I wanted to ask about, I don't see really any resolution here about what would happen, but it just makes a statement that any property that was purchased with federal funds and has a market value of $5,000 or more cannot be donated without federal approval. I get that. It says any item purchased with federal funds and has a fair market value of $5,000 or more, proceeds of the sale are generally returned to the federal awarding agency. Do you happen to know how many, and I'll just carve in my other question with this because it may impact both.
Okay.
How many buildings are sitting vacant now? And of these buildings that are sitting vacant, how many of them would actually see a return to the federal government if they were sold?
Good question, which we could write pages about. So in other words, there's not an easy answer, other than most of the buildings that this would fall into this, were still useful items that were purchased with federal dollars, probably still have bonds against them and probably are not going to be sold. Often if there's a bond still against an existing building, the debt is going to be so high on it that we're not going to be able to get that value for it. You're not going to be able to obtain a fair market value that matches that bond, and that school's just going to have to find a use for it. However, and there may be someone in the room that can better answer this, if federal dollars were used maybe through Title I to buy all the computer equipment or whatever in this school, then yes, we would have to go to federal government if the school is sold along with computer equipment and determine whether there's still a value to that we have needed to either return or pay them or whatever. It is a very complicated procedure, yes, sir. It is. It's not something to lightly look at. It is a good question. I guess it's cross that bridge when you get to a tough thing.
Well, I applaud you for taking a look at this situation. And it's not a situation of your making, obviously, or our making. I would like to see Mr. Campbell will take a question from this issue.
Okay, we'll retrieve it.
Okay. Well, I'll save my comments for Mr. Campbell. Do you happen to know a little more? I know it's complicated on the federal funds issue, but how many buildings do we have?
Okay, we don't have an exact building count, but I can tell you some directly that, I think it's 55 high schools have closed since 2004. 39 elementaries have closed since 2004. So, you add those figures together, you're getting close to 100. There may be multiple buildings that.
You said 39 elementary?
Yes. So,
55 high schools have closed since 2004, and 39 elementary. Mr. Chairman, may I ask Mr. Campbell now?
Yeah, Dr. Campbell, thank you. Please again state your name.
Tom Kimbrell, Commissioner of Education.
Dr. Campbell, I don't know how much of the conversation you've heard.
I'm sorry, I missed a little bit. Call out the hall.
He's talking about selling school buildings that have been abandoned, states due to consolidation and other purposes. You just heard her tell the number of school buildings that are vacant. Do you happen to know how many buildings total are sitting vacant now in the state that are high school or elementary buildings or school buildings related to?
No, sir, not off the top of my head. I don't know the numbers. I know that there are quite a few out there that are vacant. I know there are schools that are trying to find ways to either repurpose those. Some of them are trying to sell them, find ways to use them in community uses. But I don't, Central Record, I do not have a number off the top of my head. We do keep some of that information. Some of it we do know, some of it we don't. Because if they're vacant, we don't require that those schools report those. It's not even a requirement in the law that they're even insured.
I won't get off too far off track on this. It just makes me question maybe the policies of our state. It makes me wonder if we really considered the impact of some of these decisions that affected not only these school buildings and school boards, but these actual communities. It makes me wonder if there's any thought to really the fact that you were maybe not making the wisest decision in some of these communities to close these schools. And I will let it be said here for the record, and there's some schools that are impacted that I hope that we can deal with. But I do want to make a statement to tell you that I find it very offensive when you have quality schools that have good grades, good performance, they're very efficient, and they manage the money well. In this state, in many instances, has closed those districts simply because of arbitrary motive. When you leave districts holding the bag with these buildings that are empty like this, I just think it's a very poor way to be managed. And I'm appalled that we can't have an answer as to how many buildings that are sitting out here that were paid for with taxpayer money and even what the value is. And so with that, I would like the Education Department to obtain those numbers for this committee, give us a count of these buildings, give us a count of the value of these buildings that are affected, so that we can try now at this point to at least do something that will correct the situation.
So the record, we'll do the best that we can to get those accounting numbers as far as the number of buildings. We'll ask the districts to help us to account for those. The value is going to be the issue because the value is the difficult part to determine.
I understand that, but there also is the ability to at least give an estimate on that. But as I say, I commend Representative Linck on this. It seems like that maybe you're the one leading the charge to actually make a good situation out of a very bad one. But at the same time, it's a painful reminder for a lot of communities in our state that their entire community was wrapped up in their school districts. And many of them did very well, and now we're left holding the bag in many respects. That's what's part of what has affected and destroyed many parts of our rural communities in our state, and I think it's been a detriment to our state. With that, I'll pull back off and quit my questions, but it was an opportunity to let you know that I came from one of those small districts, and we fought all of my life to keep our school. And some people may not think I'm very sharp, but I believe I was given a good education, quality education, one that's equipped me well. And we have some communities in our state that are currently fighting to keep their districts. And I'm really sad to see that people aren't aware of the fact that quality should always be what's important, not just quantity. But I appreciate it.
Senator, you know, I also came from a small community, know who led your school district you grew up in, and people know I'm not very smart, so. We know, and I've been a part of on both ends of that, having to close school based upon the law, having to demand that closed in the position I'm in. Actually, the first action item as a commissioner was to close the school that I entered as a first grader, which was the school district my dad was his first superintendent. So I've had to deal with that issue.
Well, I believe that all of us, when we see something that makes no sense, and maybe in some cases might even seem insane to others, it's always incumbent upon us that are in charge now and that are serving to maybe rectify a situation, and not continue down a path that includes as a result where we have all these empty school buildings and communities dying around them. Again, I hope that we would strive for quality in the future. But that's the end of my question. We'll take this up another time. But I appreciate Representative Linck, what you're doing in this bill.
Dr. Kimball, in this county, I mean, there are buildings that are still owned by districts that go back to consolidations from the 40s.
Yes, sir.
Correct? Okay, when you're talking WPA buildings,
Yes, sir.
I mean, there are, there's one in my district that it's a great building. The only thing it's good for was potlucks and square dances. And that's what they used it for a long time. And at one time it was way out in the middle of nowhere, now it's right in front of Walmart. So the nature of communities kind of dictate the use and the value of those properties. So is that how, and I don't think, Senator Rader, you're not asking for that to be provided to us for the purpose of passing of this bill. I want to make sure I'm clear.
No, but I think it needs to be provided for us in general. And again, I'm surprised that there's not in some county.
Well, we have a lot of the buildings. I mean, if you go back to 2004, there was an accounting of buildings when we did the facilities research and went out and did an accounting and an appraisal of those facility conditions. So we can go back and look at that. There have been buildings that some of them had renovations, some of them had been torn down. We'll do the best that we can, Senator. We'll try to get the information that we can. We'll be working with all 239 school districts and the 18 charter schools that we have to try to get that. We'll get it as soon as possible. Hopefully, maybe we can have it for you by your committee meeting next Wednesday.
I appreciate that. I don't know where this bill, if it's actually even been filed, but especially in light of the information that I've heard here, perhaps we maybe should stop further consolidation for a little while until we are better able to assess the impact to the community moving forward.
A whole nother bill.
Yeah.
Senator Shields, we had a question.
Chairman, I did, I think I forgot that after that time. I don't think anybody's ever challenged it to tell them, I think maybe the other two senators went to that same school were concerned about, didn't got a couple of friends.
It's amazing how the Maynard community influenced this.
And I think you made a point, Senator Key, that there are a lot of buildings out there, I know I come from what in that consolidated district. There's a lot of buildings out there that were there in the 30s and 40s, or even in Senator Ed and I are kind of from the same neck of the woods. And when we finally integrated our schools, and a lot of buildings, I had a call this morning about this bill, that this Linck, it was in paper, but it was for one of my small communities. I didn't even know there was a building in there. The building's been there for years, and it's just sat there. But anyway, and I think you addressed the fact, I know when you brought this to the House Education a couple of years ago, there was an incident that kind of popped up at Juarez School, I can't remember the name of the school, and Dr. Kimball may be able to tell us, but it doesn't really matter, but they had donated a building to the city for a very minimal charge. And then the mayor turned around and it ended up in the mayor's family's hands, and they were making a church out of it. And
Any situation like that, members, the school has the first right of refusal after any lease or sale or donation or whatever is done to any other entity. The school has first right of refusal upon another exchange. So,
And I don't mean that the church is a big fine, but the problem was the school district had a building burned right after that, and they attempted to buy the building back to use temporarily, and it was for a lot more than they sold it for. But even somebody lost their job over there in that city, but anyway.
that is addressed in here, though.
And I think it's a good thing when you use these buildings, we got some good buildings out there tonight.
Yes, sir. I agree.
Senator Lindsey?
Correct. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Linck, on page 2 at line 31, after you advertise in the newspapers, et cetera, and you don't get a fair market value offer, the school board may petition the circuit court in Pulaski County to do certain things. And
That's right.
goes on with me, and finally to establish a purchase price, I think, which might be acceptable under judicial order. I had a building vacant in Vermont in Senator Cheatham's district. Would it be inconvenient for folks in Ashland County to proceed to do that filing in Pulaski County? And what's the impact of all of these 55 high schools and 39 elementaries on a single circuit court? And is it established within the local court system?
When we give you that, let me kind of answer that backwards and come around to getting the full answer. When we talk about those numbers, the 55 and 39 that we're aware of, that doesn't mean those are all bad schools sitting there empty. In other words, we're not going to try to, we don't suspect that in 2 years every school is going to be trying to sell every building by any mistake. Okay, so I don't know what the impact would be because I don't know exactly how many will end up trying to determine a fair market value and will end up actually petitioning in Pulaski County. But I don't suspect it would be very many. So I don't believe there would be a large impact on the school. Because this would be the final, last step of determining fair market value.
I guess my concern is not the impact of school, but it's the impact on the judicial system that this might pertain to what's happening. There's no impact, we don't see an impact statement.
No, I'm sorry, the impact on the court system, I don't believe there would be a large one at all. I don't think there would be that many trying to get to that point to determine the value. But on the other hand, when I say think, my guess is probably about like yours then.
You never, I guess the point, Representative Linck, you never know, and we need to know what that impact is because that, remember, the judicial system is supported by taxpayer dollars.
Yes, sir.
Be very careful about what we label into the judicial system, whatever facet.
Of course, the empty school buildings are supported by tax dollars and we're trying to utilize them too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Senator Lindsey, the question is why Pulaski County, I think we've established in law somewhere else that actions concerning districts occur in Pulaski County, but we need clarification. Mark White is here to help with that. Does that help to you, Senator? Please, Mr. White, take a seat. Help answer that question.
Mark White, Staff Director of the Department of Education. I just want to clarify, the question is regarding the action taking place in Pulaski County as opposed to another county. Under current law, there are not any restrictions on where an action against a school district may take place or involving a school district. There is state law that restricts actions against the state that must take place in Placer County. Now, I mentioned there is a bill that's been filed to require that an action involving the school district be filed in that district's home county. That's just the bill that's formed. So right now, I'm not aware of anything in the statute that would require an action to be in a particular county in the school district involved. Does that clarify the question?
Thank you.
Further questions of the committee? All right, Ms. Carr, you signed up to speak for the bill. Do you have any additional remarks you want to make at this time?
No, I didn't get that on, but I think I covered it.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone wish to speak against the bill? Please introduce yourself.
Good morning. Scott Richardson with the Attorney General's Office. There is one problem with, a constitutional problem with Representative Linck's bill. We had that discussion last session he ran it, and the other day in the House. I respect Representative Linck. I see where he's coming from. We definitely understand the need. But the Attorney General's Office, and several Attorneys General have opined that the donation of school property would run afoul of certain constitutional provisions, including in Article 14, which requires that any taxes levied for a school district be used for that school district. Article 16, Section 11, that requires any taxes levied must be used for the respective purposes for which they were levied. We have issued several opinions on this. Senator Linck's bill changes the law somewhat so that before, if there was a school district could donate a building if it received it at no cost. This bill would allow a building that was purchased, paid for, built using tax funds levied for that purpose to be donated to any nonprofit organization or a list of other organizations. And the opinions from our office are that that would run afoul of the Constitution, that the school district would be subject to suit on the donation of that property. The result could be the reversal of the donation. There are other constitutional issues that could arise depending on who the property is donated to, but that's been our office's opinion for many years.
Mr. Richardson, donate language on page 2, lines 6 through 8. They donate, it's no longer used by the district as allowed under 621-108. I don't think I have that covered. So what is 621-108?
I didn't bring my list
I've
back.
got it. It says
Yeah, I think that's in the bill.
yeah.
Make sure I'm in the right spot. And the section that alters the donation is on page 3, starting at line 18. There are some issues on selling the property. I think his bill addresses that. It's really just the donation aspect that presents what our office is applying as a clear constitutional problem for the school district.
How generally is that defined? I mean, when you're talking about purpose, using the state funds, using the millage, whatever, for the purpose, is it for general educational benefits? I think personally we try to cover that in terminology, beneficial educational services. How specific does your office think that has to be to apply with the Constitution?
The opinions have said that if there was to be some sort of use of the property, it would need to inure to the benefit of the students of the school district. And as I read this subsection 2 here, it would allow the donation of the property to a nonprofit organization just absolutely without any restriction that there be a benefit that flow back to the students in the school district in the use of that property. In which case, if the property would then be used for a purpose different from what the taxes that support it were used for. So therein sort of lies the constitutional problem.
If this bill did pass as is, what type of suit would you envision if that would be violent?
Well, there are two possibilities. As granted or a facial challenge, we call it, that the statute facially violates the Constitution for allowing donation of school property, or an as-applied challenge when a school district attempted to donate the property, that could be challenged on the donation.
Rick?
Mr. Richardson, is there not a value to the district that is having to pay for maintenance and upkeep to be able to get rid of that burden?
In fact, the opinions we have issued have said that while in the sale or the lease of the property, we need to take into account fair market value, that value could also take into account exactly what you just identified, the cost to the district of maintaining that facility. When we talk about donation, we're really talking about a different analysis.
Did you make this same argument in the committee?
I did.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Richardson, as for your concern, could that be mitigated by changing the language to say if it's donated, it has to be used for, I'm thinking strictly with donated, for the use of students, basically what you said, to further their cause in some way. So this same concern does not exist if it's a lease or if it's a purchase. Is that the same concern?
No, it's a different concern, and for the lease or the purchase, then if it has something that takes into account fair market value and the burdens on the school district of maintaining the property, which is what I understand to be the main part of Representative Linck's bill, and I think he addresses those issues. When we talk about donation, it's a separate matter. If you're just giving away the property, converting it to a different use, then you have a problem. If it is donated for a purpose that in their turn benefit to the students of the school district, it can be used for educational purposes with the students of the school districts, then I think we have a much closer question.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to be clear, there's not an issue with leasing and purchasing, that's not an issue.
Right, I'm not raising an issue there.
Okay. But when it comes to donation, it's like giving to somebody, that's when it gets back to its original, at least the taxpayer's original investment. It has to be some way near that, even if it's fuzzy, I guess. So Representative Linck, could you give me your thoughts on why that would not be acceptable to add language to I'll just say to come into compliance with the constitutional requirements, quote unquote, because I'm not trying to make anything else.
Here, we've been open to language to do that for 2 years, and we've not seen language that would bring it in. And that's why we're running it as is, because we've not been offered a solution. We've looked for solutions, we've not been offered a solution.
Have you tried to amend it, and the amendment was not acceptable?
No, I would look for language from the AG office or any other office that is better language than this, and I've not seen anything better.
Well, I'm just saying there are two options here. Usually when somebody, like I had a bill here last week, we talked a great deal about the choice bill, and I'm not waiting for those folks to come to me and bring me language, because I'm listening to what they're saying, thinking, what could I do to make this better? And that's kind of what I'm asking if you are opposed to.
No, I'm not opposed.
Because it's my bill, not there. I would
Let me put this way, I've been very open for 2 years. Today, I'm probably not very open because we've had opportunities for 2 years to fix it.
I understand your point, but I also am just kind of putting some it's a responsibility on myself. When somebody points out to me that there's an issue, if I can figure out a way to alter a solution, go, well, what about if I do this?
Well,
I'm just curious if that hasn't happened.
I think we have. I think we've found. I mean, I'm not, obviously not an attorney. We all get to be an expert in every field when we walk into this building, whether we are or not.
And we know nothing.
You know, we have to become somewhat because we get to make votes in every field. So by no means am I an attorney, so that by no means have I been opposed to any solution that's been offered to me, because but this is how we think best solves all the problems that are addressed to us. And as in my opening remarks, I mentioned that. We've worked on it for 2 years. This is the best solution we can come to all problems.
Mr. Richardson, would you offer language? I mean, well, I'm just asking this question out there. Would you offer language, and would you accept the discussion about it? Because I think it's a very good bill, and we have time to make it an even better bill.
If there is such a thing as a better bill, I love it.
And I'm just asking of the two of you. I guess we don't talk.
We're certainly happy. I'm here as a resource to all of you, including Representative Linck. I'd be happy to work with him on some language. We did raise these concerns last session. We're in a similar situation in House Committee, but we haven't been approached in the interim that I'm aware of about the bill. No one has talked to me about it, but I'd be more than happy to work with Representative Linck.
Well, I think that would be good, and I totally respect working on something for a long, because I've got, 2 or 3 bills out there I've been working on before. I can hardly say the words anymore, so I get that. I do indeed get that, but I don't expect, though, that just because I've been working on it for a long time, if there's something substantive to fix in it, that's fine. I want to have a hearing, so that's where I'm coming from. That's it.
Sure.
All right, thank you.
Senator Chief.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think we have it covered most of that. Scott, have we had buildings donated before?
I don't know.
Mr. Linck, do we have buildings donated?
I don't know.
I think we have over the years, and I don't think everything's stopped. I like to be constitutionally sound, but, I kind of beat this thing to death, but anyway, I guess if you donate a building, you get somebody mad at this, they can file suit.
It'd be our opinion that if the school district donated a school building, they would be subject to a lawsuit on that donation, with the potential result of reversing the donation, and maybe some damage.
I don't have a problem with the bill, and I'm a little more like it is, but you want to try to fix it, that's fine too. I'm more like it is, it's death, and unfortunately, anytime you do something, someone go down the building now, probably, you always got somebody in this, probably that's got a drug in somebody, so we'll probably see a lawsuit. Be willing to go along with that,
School, or you trying to convey something that might be helpful to this conversation? Or Mr. Harder, either one, part of the deliberation is getting input. This won't count as a speaker for or against. Going to add helpful conversation. I'll recognize
Well, just,
you. Go ahead and take it.
Christine Gould, Arkansas School Boards Association, I was going to let Ron talk on this bill, but since you called me up out of the audience, I'm here.
We get to hear from Ron a lot more than you. So.
You're lucky. We know that these unused or underutilized school buildings are a serious problem for our school districts. In many cases, they are desperate to be relieved of the burden of these buildings, but our concern with the bill remains the donation language and the donation to the not-for-profit organizations. And, if those little bits were taken out, I think the bill would be okay.
Ron Harder, Arkansas School Board Association. First and foremost, I could not be more appreciative of Representative Linck and the energy, effort, diligence that he has put into this bill. Absolutely, I really appreciate it. The language that's on page 2, bottom of page 2 and top of page 3 is language that Kristen gave Representative Linck, which to us actually does solve the problem, because the problem isn't the disposal of the building. The problem is the Constitution and meeting the dictates of the Constitution, which gets into fair market value. So that we are not trying, it isn't ASBA's position to have districts hang on to buildings when they're no longer in use as a district. It serves no good purpose. The long-term solution, and it's part of a much bigger problem, which probably we don't want to get into it on this bill, is Article 14, Section 2, especially of the Constitution, and that needs to be amended. Because it's an obstacle in many other things, and you can pass statute after statute, but it doesn't make them constitutional. And so our problem is not with disposal of the buildings, it is with meeting the requirements within the Constitution, which Scott has talked to very well. Could I actually address part of the building as well? Is that all right? Okay. The language that we tried to get him to put into the second part of the bill, that's in the first part of the bill on page 2, is lines 9 through 19, which, if the district disposes of the building, then the school district will have the right of first refusal, and the sale price shall not exceed the price the person paid for the district. Now, later in the bill, you have where, on the very end of the bill, if the school district, page 5, lines 7 through 10, if the school district donates real property to an entity under the section, the school district will have the right of first refusal if the entity decides to sell or otherwise dispose of real property. But so there's no protection if it was donated, even if we don't agree that you can, but if it was donated and then the person turns around and wants to sell it, they can sell it for $1 million. Just the fact that you have the right of first refusal doesn't mean you still couldn't, as a district, that you couldn't be taken to the cleaning board. But our solution to the bill would be basically to delete 621 108 and just leave the fair market value determination as a means of disposing of district property.
All right, thank you. Motion set for presentation.
Thank you.
Other questions? Ms. Richardson, have you concluded your remarks?
Yes, sir, unless there are other questions.
Questions? See no other questions? No other questions for you, Ms. Richardson. Thank you. Anyone wish to speak for the bill? Any others wish to speak against the bill? All right. Representative Linck, you recognize the folks for your bill?
I think it's a great purpose. I think it's a good bill. I appreciate your consideration.
Okay. We'll move then